There's a certain kind of ending that almost no one talks about. Not the loud kind. Not the kind where voices rise or doors close behind someone. This one is much quieter than that. You think of someone who once mattered deeply in your life, someone you used to speak with often, someone who understood pieces of your world. And when you think of them now, nothing terrible comes to mind. There was no big argument, no final conversation that explained everything. Yet something has changed. The connection that once felt natural now feels distant in a way that's hard to describe. Maybe you still see their name appear on your phone once in a while. Maybe you run into them from time to time. And when you do, the conversation is polite, kind even. But something inside the rhythm of the relationship is different now. The easy closeness that once existed has softened into something quieter. You might notice it slowly. The calls become less frequent, the conversations shorter. The feeling that once held the friendship together begins to loosen little by little. Some relationships don't end with a door slam. They end with a slow silence. And at first, that silence can be confusing. You might ask yourself if you did something wrong, or if something happened that you somehow missed. But sometimes nothing dramatic happened at all. Sometimes two lives simply begin moving in different directions. People grow. Their needs change. Their days fill with different things. And before you fully realize it, a relationship that once felt essential now feels like a chapter from another season of life. Not every distance begins with a fight. Some begin with growth. In the next part, we'll talk about the time when that person once felt essential, how certain people hold entire chapters of our lives, even if those chapters eventually come to a quiet close. Before the distance, there was a time when that person felt almost woven into your daily life. You knew their voice the way you know a familiar song. You could call them without planning it. You could sit together and talk for hours without searching for words. Some relationships begin quietly like that. One conversation turns into many. One shared moment becomes a rhythm. Soon enough, that person is part of your ordinary days. They hear about the small things, the good news, the frustrating moments, the parts of life you wouldn't bother explaining to most people. They understand the background of your story. And that kind of understanding is rare. There may have been a time when you spoke every week or every day. Late evening conversations, long drives where you shared things you didn't say to anyone else. At one time, their voice was part of your daily weather. You knew how they laughed. You knew the small expressions they used when they were tired or amused. Sometimes relationships like this arrive exactly when you need them most. A certain season of life opens. You are changing, they are changing. And for a while, you walk through that season side by side. There are people who hold entire chapters of our lives. They remember who we were at a particular moment in time, the dreams we had then, the struggles we were carrying, the version of ourselves that existed in that season. And that kind of closeness can feel permanent when you're inside it. You assume the rhythm will continue, the conversations will keep happening, the understanding will always be there. But life has a way of shifting quietly, not with a loud break, just with time. In the next part, we'll talk about the moment the fit begins to change, when something that once felt natural starts to feel slightly different, even if no one can quite explain why. The shift rarely happens all at once. There isn't a single day where you wake up and think, this relationship has changed. Instead, it happens slowly. So slowly that you almost miss it. The conversations become a little shorter. You still talk, but not quite as often. You still care about each other, but the rhythm that once felt effortless begins to feel slightly different. Maybe you meet for coffee after not seeing each other for a while. You sit across the table, the same place you've met before, the same cups on the table. But the conversation doesn't flow in quite the same way. There are small pauses where there didn't used to be. You search for topics that once appeared naturally, and neither of you says it out loud, but you both feel something subtle. The fit has changed. Not in a dramatic way. No one has betrayed anyone. No one has said something unforgivable. It's simply that the two lives that once moved closely together are now moving at slightly different speeds. Interests change. Daily routines shift. The things that once connected you begin to fade quietly into the background. Sometimes the change is so quiet you almost miss it. You leave the conversation feeling thoughtful, not hurt, not angry, just aware that something is different now. People don't always leave our lives. Sometimes they simply grow in another direction. And growth is not something you can argue with. It happens whether anyone announces it or not. This is often the moment when people start feeling a quiet kind of grief, not because someone did something wrong, but because a chapter that once felt alive is slowly becoming a memory. In the next part, we'll talk about why outgrowing someone can feel like a form of grief, and why that feeling is far more common and far more human than most people realize. One of the hardest parts of this kind of change is that nothing dramatic happened. If there had been a fight, the story would be easier to understand. If someone had clearly walked away, there would at least be an ending you could point to. But when a relationship fades quietly, the feeling is harder to explain. The person is still out there, somewhere. You might still see them occasionally. You might still exchange messages once in a while. And yet the closeness that once existed is no longer there. This is where a quiet kind of grief can appear. Not the loud grief that follows a clear loss. A softer kind. The kind that sits quietly in the background. Because what you're grieving is not only the person. You're grieving the version of the relationship that once existed. The long conversations, the easy understanding, the sense that someone was walking through that season of life beside you. Sometimes people feel guilty when this happens. They wonder if they should try harder to keep the connection alive. They question whether stepping back means they are being unkind. But relationships change the same way people do. Growth doesn't always keep two lives moving in the same direction. Sometimes it gently pulls them apart. And when that happens, the sadness is not a sign that something went wrong. It's simply the heart recognizing that a chapter is ending. You may find yourself remembering small things, a place you used to meet, a certain conversation that meant a lot at the time. Moments that felt ordinary back then, but now carry a quiet weight. And as you remember them, you realize something important. Sometimes we're not grieving the person. We're grieving the season of life that existed when that relationship was strong. That season has passed. And recognizing that can feel tender, but it can also bring clarity. Because once you understand that growth is part of the story, something else becomes possible. You can step back without anger, without blame, without turning the ending into something harsher than it needs to be. In the next part, we'll talk about the quiet dignity of stepping back from a relationship that no longer fits, and how not every goodbye needs to be spoken out loud. One of the quietest forms of wisdom is learning when to step back. Not because someone has done something terrible, not because the relationship became bitter, simply because the connection that once held the two of you together no longer fits the same way. Many people feel pressure to explain this kind of change. They think they owe a long conversation, a careful speech, a final moment where everything is laid out clearly. But life doesn't always work that way. Some relationships do not need a formal ending. They simply change shape. The calls become less frequent, the visits become occasional, and slowly, both people settle into different parts of their lives. There is a kind of dignity in allowing that space to appear naturally. It doesn't require harsh words. It doesn't require blame. Sometimes, kindness looks like stepping back without making the moment heavier than it needs to be. You can still wish someone well. You can still feel gratitude for the role they once played in your life. Distance does not erase the meaning a relationship once had. In fact, sometimes distance protects that meaning. Because when a relationship has quietly run its course, forcing it to remain the same can create tension that was never there before. Letting it rest where it is can be a form of respect. Not every goodbye needs to be spoken. Sometimes two people simply continue their lives on different paths. And if they cross again, the interaction can still carry warmth, but it no longer carries the same weight. This kind of ending may not be dramatic, but it can be deeply human. In the next part, we'll talk about what these quiet goodbyes teach us about life, and how people who once mattered deeply can still remain part of our story, even after the closeness fades. As the years pass, most people begin to see something about relationships that wasn't obvious when they were younger. Not every connection is meant to last forever. Some people enter our lives for a particular season, a time when we needed exactly what they brought with them: understanding, encouragement, companionship, a sense that someone else saw the world in a way that matched our own. For a while, the timing fits perfectly. Two lives overlap in the same chapter. But life keeps moving. People change jobs, families grow, interests shift. Experiences shape us in ways we couldn't predict. And slowly, the path that once ran side by side begins to curve. One person moves one direction, the other person moves another. Neither path is wrong. They are simply different. Looking back later, you may realize how important that person was during that chapter. They may have helped you through a difficult season. They may have witnessed parts of your life that no one else fully understands. They may have helped shape the person you eventually became. And even if the closeness faded, the meaning of that connection remains. Some people were never meant to stay forever, but they were meant to matter. They helped write a chapter of your life story, a chapter that still belongs to you. A finished chapter can still be a beautiful one. In the final part, we'll bring this reflection to a gentle close and talk about how to let these relationships rest with gratitude instead of regret. As you grow older, you begin to understand something quieter about relationships. Not all of them are meant to travel the entire road with you. Some walk beside you for miles, others only for a short stretch. But that doesn't make the journey any less real. When a relationship fades without anger or betrayal, it can leave a strange feeling behind. a mix of gratitude and sadness. You remember the conversations, the laughter, the small moments that once felt ordinary but now carry meaning. And sometimes you wonder if you should have done something differently. If there was a way to keep that chapter open a little longer. But life does not hold still. People continue becoming who they are meant to become. And sometimes that path gently leads them away from the people who once felt essential. That doesn't make the past a mistake. It simply means the story has moved forward. There is dignity in allowing a relationship to rest where it belongs, not forcing it to stay alive, not rewriting it into something painful, just letting it remain what it was, a meaningful part of your life. You can carry appreciation for the time you shared. You can remember who you were during that chapter. And you can move forward without needing a dramatic ending. Because some of the most human goodbyes are the quiet ones. Not every relationship is meant to last forever. But the ones that shaped you will always belong to your story. If this letter met you at the right time, you're welcome here. And if you'd like, tell me in the comments, have you ever quietly outgrown a relationship that once meant a lot to you? Take what helps, leave the rest.